Welcome to the Starting Over podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, a.k.a. Dark Logos. And this is where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of HeroClix. And today, we have a special guest. Yes, you don't have to hear me solo today. I have Mr. Scott Cram Company. He is... You will hear me mention Cram Company. This is the man. This is the guy who really made me take a real good look at the meta and say, what is functional, what is not functional, and what is it like to be a high-level meta thinker. So go ahead and say hello to the nice people.
Hi, everybody. My name's Scott. I go by the handle Cram Company. And if you're on other places, a lot of times my logo is that Alan Scott Green Lantern thing. A lot of times you see that picture up.
Yeah, one of the most dominant figures in HeroClix ever.
Sure. And
even still a monster of a piece if you're able to get one and not pay over $100. With that being said, let's get right into it. One of the things that's interesting is that you're a multiple Wizard World champion, aren't you?
Yep. I'm a multiple Wizard World champion. I won 2 years in a row. I came in top 4 the previous year, and then this year this new tournament year I've done pretty well. I won Dragon Con. I just came in second Clixathon, and I won the Michigan Championship.
Oh, sweet. I wish we had a Missouri Championship. I'd love to do that.
Start one.
Start one.
Go on the Realms or something like that, and start one. That's how they did it. They just, advertised it for a month or two, and then put up a nominal prize. I think they made some money on it too. So. Oh,
sweet. Well, I'll have to think about that one and see who I could talk to do that. But going back, you won Wizard World back when the prize wasn't to create your own character. It was, I think, they would fly you to the next Wizard World, or what was it?
Well, it was interesting because my very first tournament was the Philly tournament that I won at, and I had never done a big HeroClix event in any way whatsoever. And I showed up with a team that a lot of people thought was pretty laughable, which was a Lockjaw. It was almost like Lamp, but there was no Poison or Joker. It was Lockjaws, Iron Fist, Jean Marie, who was an Ellie figure of Aurora, and
there was
a bunch of just cards and protected and stuff like that.
Aurora was
awesome. I ended up winning that year. But yeah, what was interesting, I think, about that whole experience was I won one thing, which was this ability to kind of to get a masterpiece figure, but they added on a bunch of prizes for me retroactively. This is back when Wade Simagora, I believe was his last name, he was in charge of all those WizKids events and stuff like that, and they added on retroactively me flying me out to Chicago, which is a prize I'm very grateful for, but I only live 3 hours from Chicago, so it was like a 12-minute plane trip.
It was cheap for them.
They advertised they'd fly for anywhere in the country. I literally wanted to take a one-way trip to someplace cool and then have them fly me back from there to Chicago. But the second year I won it, I actually drove down and they got me some cool stuff at Wizard World Chicago. They got me one of those VIP passes or something like that. But yeah, it was retroactive prizes, and back then, especially HeroClix just treated you amazingly. I played Magic mildly competitively, and my decks were $500, $600 a deck, and it was I never got treated well playing Magic. It was competitive. It was cutthroat. The people were brutal. The worst thing I ever saw in Magic, and one of the reasons I quit, is there's a 12-year-old boy there, and he was playing huge tournament, not for $1 million. You beat him. The guy tore up his entire deck in front of the kid and threw it at him. And so
wow.
Stuff like that where I'm like, this is not that fun. It was cutthroat. You didn't talk to people. It was, brutal magic. And I went over to HeroClix, and everybody was so nice. And, one of the coolest things about HeroClix is they just sent you stuff. I just, in the mail, an LE figure. I wanted Galactus for just showing up to other tournaments, and HeroClix literally sent me a Galactus in the mail for free. I didn't enter anything, nothing. They just sent me a full Galactus in the mail just because I won some minor league tournament in my hometown that had nothing to do with HeroClix. Nothing big.
Huh.
And they just sent it to me because they sent out like a couple hundred, and that HeroClix mentality kept me so loyal. Then I won the Wizard World Philly, and then they decided, now we fly you places. And it was like a gift that kept on giving. And my team, comparative to the Magic decks were, $500, you could have bought my team that I won Philly with online the next day for $13.
Really?
Yeah, it was, lockjaws were common.
Yeah.
Iron Fist, the most expensive figure was an LE Jean Marie, which not one person in 3 years of her being legal played her in a major tournament other than me. So she was going around $6 online.
Was that before or after the hypersonic speed nerf?
That was before I played her, the first time was before, so she did have the full 6 range. I'm trying to remember if the second time was or not. I think both were pretty, but I know it didn't affect her much because her big thing was she had a 12 movement and a 6 range. So she had an 18 swing that whole time. That was her thing. An 18 swing was huge. She could get you nearly at the starting area if you needed to. And a lot of people back then played positioning. It was harder to get around sometimes. So, hiding a figure in street, you just one-shot go out there and hit him for 3. And she was a flyer, which a hypersonic speed flyer with 3 damage, was pretty uncommon. And I always put Thunderbolted her up with Suicide Squad and had maybe 9 Leon Harper bombs. So Jean Marie was always pushing. If you hit her, she was almost impossible to kill because you really had to hit her you had to kill her that turn or she'd Suicide Squad back up.
Yeah, and the one thing for some of our listeners who haven't been in the game that long, one reason why that Aurora LE was so powerful is it was the beginning of WizKids switching to the new standardized size maps that we have now. Because before, the maps were along the size of the arena, the skyscraper map, probably a little bit bigger than that, depending on which one you play. And they didn't have any clear markings of where your starting area was and various other things. And with the Junkyard map, oh my gosh, I hated hypersonic speed flyers because you could fly over the belt, hit somebody, and fly into the trash compactor, which was this very safe spot because it was elevated terrain all around this the trash compacting area. So pretty much hypersonic speed flyers just had a field day on that map. So yeah, I definitely see the value of that figure.
At the time, I think the only 3 maps that were, it was pretty much the lab, the junkyard, and I don't even think the ship was around back then. Not the ship, but it was DC, and it had it was the first map to have the indoors, but also have elevated terrain. And that hadn't even come out yet. So I think there's only 3 or 4 maps that you can play on, which I kind of miss those days, because gosh, there's a lot of maps right now.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, and I'm also glad WizKids switched from the format of, hey, guess what, you must play on one map. That part was annoying for looking at commentary on Wizard World tournaments, because we had a couple of Wizard Worlds. Like the first time when they introduced the not the Junkyard map. What was it? It was the JSA map. Oh
Yes.
gosh, every team was almost identical. That one was like the worst Wizard World to look at.
That one was pretty hard. I think one of the Chicago one, the second Chicago tournament I was in, they had decided to fly. No, the first Chicago tournament I was in, I thought this was one of the hardest ones because it was in the heyday of KC Flash.
Yeah.
And they had just not come out with anything that could really take on KC Flash. You were always doing a 21 defense. It was so hard to stand. Really, Joker was the only way to take him down. There's just nothing. And then if you pulled for teamwork, if your opponent played for teamwork against you, KC Flash just pretty much auto won. He could go too far and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a story if you want to hear about that Chicago con, the one they flew me out to
Go ahead.
right after Wizard World.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're interested?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, well, it was interesting because they flew out Rob. I can never pronounce his last name, but Zola, and he's won 3 Wizard Worlds. He had won the LA one, and they flew me out. I won the Philly one, and they hadn't added us officially to the final day. They said we were there, but when they did out the math, they put us at kind of a weird odd number. So I think it was it was like 33 people, I think, were in the tournament, or 34 people were in the final day, and it was single elimination. You played 2 rounds guaranteed. So the first round I played, I won. I played KC Flash, and I did really well. I know I swept my opponent. And then the second round, I ended up playing Rob, who they had flown out. So it was me and Rob, who had won the previous championship, and we were going to knock one of each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rob, if you guys are unfamiliar with Rob, I know he's down on the realms all the time, but Rob is probably the smartest Hero Clone player alive. No offense to anybody else, but Rob is brilliant, and I am lucky, which is the difference between me and Rob. Is Rob's much smarter than me, but not quite as lucky as me as general.
What's Rob's handle? So people know. What's Rob's handle on the realm so they can bug him?
I have no idea what Rob's handle is. I know that he's won 3. He was the only person to win 2 Wizard Worlds in a row.
It's not unique, is
he
it?
still goes to all the major tournaments. He's one of the most consistent people at the table. He's Canadian. I don't know what his handle is, though. I don't think he posts a ton on the realm, but he's definitely a genius. And I ended up playing him, and we played each other it was probably one of the best matches I ever played, and I won by about 1 second. They had called time before he had made a declaration of an attack. If he had made the attack, he won. I ended up winning that match by, I think it was 2 points. And so I went 2-0 in single elimination, and I knocked out Rob. By luck, I still did it. So then they were declaring, final table, which is top 8. And they had flown me out there and flown Rob out there. Now, Rob wasn't going to be in top 8, but I was supposed to be. Then they cut it down, and they realized that 9 people had gone 2-0 in a single elimination tournament because they had added me and Rob to it. So Wade took me aside, and he's like, hey, man, I got bad news. It's technically single elimination, and you weren't eliminated, but you're not top 8.
Oh.
So I got moved out. I had never lost a game. And at that time, I had never lost a single game in competitive play, and I didn't get a chance to go on in Chicago. So that was one of the more interesting, I thought, stories of what had happened. They flew me and Rob out to do the tournament and put us against each other round 2, and then we essentially eliminated each other.
Just by existing.
Basically by points, we had eliminated each other. I didn't take a lot of points off Rob. I he's like, when you feed him up, he's like 220 points or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I had just taken out enough of his, like a 2 lockjaws or something like that to beat him. So I had the lowest points, so I was nice. Single elimination tournament, I didn't get elimination, but they had to eliminate me because there was cut to top 8. They had booked in 34 people by mistake. So, anyway, that's a funny story about that, but I know you want to talk more about metagame and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, and these are things that sort of flavor the history of the show, because one thing I will say is, like, I am a learner of the podcast realm, and HeroClix podcast is growing, it's changing, it's becoming better, and there's a lot of great people out there. I always sort of big up Push to Regen and HeroClix Show and a few others, and I will say this: when it comes to like high level analysis, I think this is the only show that really does that. But when it comes to entertainment value, I will not lie. There's a whole bunch of better shows for entertainment value. But let's go ahead and sort of like start looking at the meta. And more importantly, one reason I wanted to bring you on here is, and how do you look at the meta, and how do you play test? And those are the main things that I really want us to focus on. So let's start looking at how do you look at the meta, and what do you think is the best element in the meta right now?
Well, I mean, right now in the past year and a half, all the tournaments I just mentioned, I just won. I won with Nightcrawler Metron. It's not the sexiest pick, but Nightcrawler Metron is currently the only meta. One of the things that's happened recently in HeroClix is when they banned the team cards, they thought that it would let a lot of different teams in, a lot of different characters, and that's the reverse. It made the play builds actually more narrow. And because, now you don't have REB sets, so that makes it more narrow. And generally there is, in HeroClix, very unfortunately, there's generally a best team, and it's a best team by a lot. And we play test against the best team constantly. I have a group, it's the 4 Point Gaming Club, and it consists of other people, such as Ed Arnold Berkovitz, who's uniquest on Realms, and Captain Cool, Matt Esbrook, and both of them have won some championships. And I also play test a lot against George Masu, who won the 2010 actually championship, and he won the Chicago tournament.
He's a frequent person on this show.
That I just told the story about.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
George is a frequent person on this show. Him and Dan are great guys. And I talk to George frequently about clicks.
But George is really smart. He's very out of the box. So George is a good person to test me in. First off, I'll surf Realms. I'll surf Realms for good teams. I evaluate each character quite a bit. In the metagame now, compared to what it was just recently, what used to be my big thing is I never play a character over 100 points. They'd have to really impress me if they were over 100 points. I believe in the value of clicks quite a bit. You're seeing that a lot now, much more tangibly when you see like a Thor, where he's 250, or Thanos, for instance, Shay Thanos. You're paying legitimately 25 points for those extra 2 clicks. He's 300 points or he's 350. Now you're seeing that more tangibly, but I always do kind of a point breakdown, Metron is 195 points for 6 clicks, which immediately had written him off in the past meta. However, now you can't build a balanced team anymore. A balanced team doesn't exist. There is cheap healing, but there is basically no really cheap perplex. Probability control is a hard 35 points, and they do nothing else. Roulette is a completely useless character other than prop control. So what's happened is the support powers have become so expensive, somebody like Metron that has every support power becomes a toolbox. then you look at the broken figures. You know, Nightcrawler is beyond broken. Nightcrawler would be, you'd probably play Nightcrawler if he was 110, 120 points. I'm sure you've had a lot of talk about Nightcrawler, and I'm very excited for him to be retired. I've heard that he was a kind of a mistake that they let pass. And, you know, Nightcrawler himself can easily beat a 250-point team by himself, and I have played that, and I've won.
I so wanted to have been.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I so wanted to have been on the show, and every time I sort of reach out to him, he says, "Go talk to the current champions," and I think I give him a fair shake. I think he's been sort of gun shy.
Ben's another person. I will say I think Rob is the best mind in HeroClix, but Ben's very, very close within striking distance. Definitely smarter than me. He just you can talk to him now. He's the current champion of Clixathon. He won the Clixathon, for those who don't know, is it's a big tournament that Norm, who's the former rules arbitrator and currently is a designer, he runs that out in the Baltimore area. Runs Clixathon. It's really fun, high competitive gaming. And it was me and Ben in the finals for Clixathon, and he ended up beating me with a Sigma Metron team with I think Gotham City police officer actually. So he had those three characters. Of course, my Metron Nightcrawler. So I thought it was kind of ironic that he designed Nightcrawler and then built a team that could beat Nightcrawler.
Crawler, yeah. Yeah. So I mean,
yeah. If you reach out to him, you know, he'll probably do it. I can email him or something like that. He was actually he wasn't big into the fame. He judged a lot. That's what he wanted to do, and I think he's going to go back to that actually. And he wants to work at the booth. He didn't really want to play competitively. He just kind of did it as for fun, and it just kind of worked out for him.
Yeah. And with that, sort of go in a little bit more about when you're assessing things, how do you compile a team, and what you really think is important in compiling a team.
Compile a team is the question?
Yeah. How do you personally, when you're starting to build the 300-point range, what are you looking at? And just give me like a breakdown, like an average team. It doesn't have to be a Worlds or a Gen Con level team.
Okay. For Worlds and Gen Con, the difference is I look for a team that can also run. For casual play, I look for a team that can survive. One of the big things people don't realize is in HeroClix, high attack always trumps high defense. High defense can definitely win you games, don't get me wrong, but it loses to a high attack team. And luck also beats a high defense team. But bad luck will basically destroy any team except for a very high attack team. So I make sure that I can hit first and foremost. Probability control, even 35 points, is probably about 15 to 20 points less than it's currently worth. And for those of you who are sharking right now for the reality gem, the reality gem should be priced at about 25 points. So you should, the reality gem should be on every single team in the gauntlet. If you're debating what thing to use, it's the reality gem, unless your figure already has prop control. Anyway, so probability control is huge. Then I look for an ability to survive. You know, a lot of people use tricks and stuff like that. Tricks don't always work. You get the wrong map, you get the wrong, there's so many different things. I look for survive. I used to love Suicide Squad because Suicide Squad meant you could sacrifice something and, your team heals up and everybody survives. And then lastly, I look at point cost. You see those figures that are the 150 point, 200 point, 300 point figures, and they're shy is how important it is both to hit and how you can really get teams. You can destroy teams that have these big figures if you have prop control. He ran, for those you don't know, he ran a 5 prop control team, and people would miss on him when they needed a 4 or a 5 or something like that. But at that time, people were playing these huge figures. You know, they're playing these, I'm going to hit you for 7 damage figures, and when a figure like that misses, it's the equivalent to 3 or 4 different people missing on a well-balanced team.
And then also,
that being said,
the other thing with George's team I sort of looked at in the analysis is that which has since changed, is that with playing the Shazam, it was the only figure that was able to do like 4 or 5 damage at a sub 200 points. And that was huge, being able to pack that plus having prob with it. So now we have Supermans and tons of other things that will give you that same bang for your buck. But in the meta then, when Brave and the Bold came out, there wasn't that much that was like low points, high damage. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, George, that team was really clever because it always hit. I mean, it always hit. He had so much prop control, so much perplex. Cypher wasn't out, so you could play Etrigan. So as far as metagame goes, you have an idea going in what most people are going to play, and then it comes down to how many people are going to play that. Me and Ed and Matt, the 4-Point Gamers, will talk endlessly about, well, how many Kid Dooms are there going to be? Is it worth it? Right now, Kid Doom is a huge meta thing. If you're playing a Superman team and Kid Doom's out there, and it's Kid Doom and Metron, you're probably going to as close to automatically lose that game as exists in HeroClix. You also have to look at map now. Map's totally different. There are so many auto wins on maps. Quick examples would be Chase Thanos in a 400-point game. He plays Hawk World. You're probably not even going to attack him. He's going to carry you there and then send you right back. Chase Thanos is. If you're playing against Galactus, Master Mold, any of the big base figures, the Bizarro World automatically makes them, it's an auto loss. If they win map roll, you automatically lose to Bizarro World. They can only go one space, and you can get to a spot where you can attack them, and they can't attack you back if you have hyperspeed or the gauntlet or anything.
Yeah.
So stuff like that can actually narrow the metagame even more. The more special rules maps that they make, the narrower the metagame becomes. Master Mold, if Bizarro map doesn't exist, I've playtested out about 1,000 times now. Master Mold can beat Metron consistently if Bizarro World map doesn't exist.
At 200 points.
The 200-point Master Mold can clearly beat him. The multi-attack, he can, basically how it plays out is this. Master Mold, with any kind of perplex or shield or anything, he can run to base 10 and then shoot Metron 11 squares away. With the Reality Gem, he gets a reroll. Usually you're also playing reroll, so you have that as well. He is likely to hit you. He's likely to hit Metron. Metron cannot retaliate, and Master Mold gets to the Gauntlet faster. And the Gauntlet right now, I know you said let's not talk about the Gauntlet, but it is a race for the Gauntlet, and Master Mold wins that race every single time, especially if he has any ability to heal, because he can do his Masters of Evil style pushing. Or that's what I call the pushing that the giant and the colossals can do.
Yeah.
And that's how it plays out is if you're playing Metron, they both have the Gauntlet, which they obviously will. Master Mold can sit in that corner, and he can, put the Gauntlet, and then he can push. If Metron pushes, Master Mold can run out there, attack him, then Metron clears, Master Mold attacks him 2 more times, then Metron gets to move in order to attack him, or he can grab with Nightcrawler, which doesn't work that often because he's so far away, you can only bring him on up to 3 squares, and in that case his base becomes a hindrance because a lot of times you can't put it 3 squares in a different direction because there's so few squares Master Mold can be. That's kind of how that plays out.
Yeah.
I'm probably all over the place here.
No, that's fine. That. And I mean, and that's one of those elements of, like, for me, personally, I had a talk with Dan, and we looked at Galactic Guardians, and people can go back and look at that show. What was real interesting that came up is that when we talked about Master Mode, and I was like, Master Mode, Gauntlet, some form of support, you know, it's most likely not going to be healing. It's going to be General Thunderbolt Ross with Airstrike, something along those lines, so you can deal with those stranger barrier teams. Once I was telling them, I was like, man, this can be awesome, and we went back and forth on that tech, and now I sort of feel a little bit more validated on my Master Mode call.
If Bizarro Map doesn't exist, Master Mode's great. However, because Bizarro Map exists, all they have to do is win macro, and it's not even like you never get to it with Master Mode. Literally, it's an auto loss.
Okay. So with that being said, is the value of theme teams a lot higher now, even though you have the limitations of you can't, you know, prop through if you've already done a theme team prop with that figure or all those other things? Is theme team now like when theme teams just came out, like it's almost required to play theme teams at high level play?
I disagree. I think the theme teams I think the theme teams certainly can be viable. But the problem with theme teams is 9 times out of 10, you know, you do get the map, but that 10th time you don't. And if you're playing a theme team, you will lose. And Metron Nightcrawler is good on any map. Metron Nightcrawler doesn't have a map that auto loses for them. Whereas in a lot of your team teams, there's mini maps that you can auto lose. And then a lot of times, how many figures are going higher costed? Now, you're usually playing a 150-point character or a 120-point character. You're probably only getting a +4, +5. And then the problem with team team, more than anything, is the fact that you're not the only one playing a team team. So a lot of times you have limited your selection of what you can play. You have handcuffed your team building ability. You have said, I am building a team team. I am not going to use the best possible figures. I'm going to use a really good figure, and then what can thematically work with them. And then you'll play another person that has team team, and you'll lose the map roll. So, in general, I have almost never played a theme team in competitive in my entire life. I have never won a championship in competitive as a theme team. I think there are a few times in which you would, some rare scenarios, like if you really didn't want to play Metron Nightcrawler, you have to play Master Mold as a theme team, which means you're handcuffing yourself with Master Mold being a Tier 1 figure, but you're putting Tier 3 figures around you. That's a common term. We use Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 figures, and we sort them out. That's part of our strategy, is we figure out what's truly a Tier 1, what's truly a Tier 2. And obviously the goal is getting as many Tier 1 figures in as possible. But I think team limits. I'm definitely I'm one of the lone horses on that philosophy, though. I can tell you that much. So if you're sitting at home and you play team team, you love team team, I'm not trying to say, you know, you're a jerk by any means. I can tell you a lot of my people I play with, a lot of my play testers, they feel very strongly about team team. But bottom line is, it's still a dice roll to get that map, and that's really all they're giving you. And if you're playing another team team, then it's just an even dice roll, and how does that really help you?
Yeah, and one thing that you bring up about theme teams and playing against other theme teams I've had that encountered lately, and then we're also, when this is coming out, we're going to be heading into Infinity Gauntlet Month 6, where it's 400-point theme teams, and you have non-generic theme teams at that. And so, most of the Colossals, you can't play them. So that's a positive. But at the same time, you're looking at a situation in which everyone's going to have a theme team. And it's like, what theme team do you pick, to try to have an edge up over people with map and so-and-so.
Ray, that's it. Like, I don't know that scenario, so I'm not going to claim I've mastered it by any means. But Toma Ray is the only way you can guarantee a theme team. And that, to be clear, is the Toma Ray that says you get +1 to your map roll or to your map roll for every single thing, blah, blah. The other thing to do is build a theme team that just works on any map, which means you have to have flying. It means you can't have huge base figures that are going to do well in certain scenarios and certain terrains. I will tell you a big thing I recently learned, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, so this kind of a big secret tip that I'm going into Origins with. The big base figures, the official ruling is, if they're standing in Hawkworld map, Lava map, anything like that, every single square of their base has to be in it for the effects of the map to take place. That also goes with things like Space Map and stuff like that. So if they're playing on Space Map and one square of theirs is on a clear terrain that's a normal terrain, they can shoot as if they're not in it in any way. And you can shoot at them as if they're not in it in any way.
Wow.
So their entirety of their base. So I thought that was kind of a fast tip, so to speak.
So the entirety of their base has
people
to be
didn't know that. That's the kind of secret tech.
This is where we get rules lawyering really into the show.
Well, the big thing is, people have a problem with the rules in HeroClix because they don't know them. And there becomes fights at Friday night HeroClix because one person came in building a team thinking one thing, and it's just not true. And I played a guy in Chicago at a major tournament who I sat down with, and he had a guy in stealth, and I charged him, and he's like, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "I can't charge your guy? Why?" And he's like, "Well, because he's in stealth." I'm like, "Yeah?" Well, he's like, "Yeah, you can't see him." And I'm like, "Well, how do you attack him?" He's like, "You can't. He's in stealth." and so we had to bring their judge over and stuff like that. But that's how they played at home, because he had a judge there with him, playing in his local venue, that said, "Yeah, you can't see anybody in stealth, so how are you going to charge at him? How are you going to shoot at him?" And basically, his whole tournament, everybody plays stealth. And the games are impossible to play, basically, because you can't attack a stealth person for any reason if they're in stealth.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how that stuff goes. But, even in the major tournaments, even, for those of you at home who don't go to Origins, don't go to Gen Con, I ask judges probably 30 questions a game. I don't have this down. I've certainly been very lucky. I've won quite a few tournaments. And, even the best minds, maybe except for Ben, don't ask stuff all the time. You ask stuff all the time. And generally, people are pretty cool. When you get to the majors, you do have to declare action. You do have to do stuff. Nobody's a jerk in HeroClix major stuff, but, rules of lawyering, you hear that a lot, and it's a lot of times at the local venues where that's a problem. It's never at the major tournament. Really jerks about it.
Okay, and so as we're sort of examining, like, all right, we're bringing this out of the meta, and we're looking at, okay, that's tier 1. As you bring this up, what in tier 2 probably needs to be looked at or explored? What can be cultivated out of what we have now into something better? Because I talk to a lot of people, and right now there's 2 teams and about 3 philosophies that are floating around. And the 2 major teams are the Nightcrawler, Metron, and the other is the Stranger Barrier team, because the Nightcrawler team can't really deal with Stranger. the Stranger team with the double barrier, but at the same time, the Stranger team has problems with, multiple aggressors. But then you have the people who have the support gauntlet on a figure, so that the main goal is for them to have TK and Prob. And then the other people that put the gauntlet on a big hitter, and then, go for it. And then the shrinking minority, which I used to be a part of and am no longer a part of, which is I can play the game without the gauntlet, and while other people are playing the gauntlet. So with that being said, what in the meta do you think that could be, like, not necessarily saying gimmicky, but something worth saying, like, maybe if the right pieces come along, maybe if we have a little bit more time, we can develop something around this?
Sure. Okay. Well, there's a couple different thoughts. One I'll address the minority. There's only two teams that you can play without the gauntlet and be Tier 1 competitive. Xeron, the Tester, and Galactus. And that's it.
Okay.
Those are the only two teams that can be played without the gauntlet, and the only reason they don't have it is because they're 300 points exactly. Every team should have the gauntlet on it, period. The thing that people don't understand, I think, with the gauntlet is it's as much of a race as you could possibly imagine. So you can't put you have to have nowadays a person with a minimum of willpower on any team you build right now, period. And that person has to have the gauntlet. So, like, at the lowest possible form, the gauntlet would go on, like, the 150-point Superman. And that's not even a very good choice. At least not with Nightcrawler and Metron rolling around. When we talk about this a lot, I'm going to address it when retirement happens, because that's coming up pretty soon. Frankly, there is, if Nightcrawler's Tier 1, Metron's Tier 1, I would argue that Bullseye and Eradicator are both Tier 1 figures. Like, if you're sitting across from them, I don't even find that, I don't even find Stranger to be Tier 1, to be honest. I don't think that wins the majority of the time, because it loses so badly to any rogue team, period. Most of the time. Not saying every time, but a lot of times.
Yeah, okay.
And it loses to you rolling badly on the gauntlet as well, because Stranger just doesn't have, if Stranger misses, which he misses a lot, it doesn't work. That being said, the reality gem does help Stranger quite a bit. So, as far as who's lurking, Mole Man, I love Mole Man. Mole Man is one character away from being amazing. You could build a multi-Mole Man team if there was a monster that was truly worth it. Because him having a 12 mind control is this thing if you can target your own characters. That multi-attack thing, I know everybody's seeing a lot now because they're seeing Theron, they're seeing Master Mold. I think Eradicator is maybe especially after retirement, when the full gauntlet is on, I think Eradicator might be a Tier 1 figure to put a full gauntlet on. He can use willpower, he can't be outwitted, he has the dial for it, he has almost everything you need in a figure, and he cuts down other figures with the gauntlet. Sunboy is really lurking. Anybody, you look really hard at Pulse Wave right now. Anything with Pulse Wave, I've heard some arguments, here's one way out there. I've heard some arguments for the 190-something Black Bolt. He has everything you want if you have the gauntlet on 2 or 3. So if you can get the gauntlet on 2 or 3 and barrier up, he will wreck other teams coming at you with the gauntlet. He has a 12 attack. By the time he gets to that 2 or 3, he gets a 13 attack. He will run Pulse Wave, and he Pulse Wave your team. He has crushing shot.
Okay, so you were saying about Mole Man. You said he's pretty much.
Yeah. And as far as figures nobody's really looking at, I think Mole Man's incredible. And what we're waiting for is there to be an actual monster that's worth him, doing the mind control over. So I think he's lurking in the background. He's one good figure. If there was a true, amazing Tier 1 monster, I think you could legitimately make a case to play that person with a double mole man and him attacking 3 times. I think would wreck a lot of teams. Teams can't deal with stuff like that. Teams have a hard time dealing with being moved, multi-attacking in the same turn by the same character. It's really tough for a lot of teams to deal with as well.
I really enjoyed Mole Man with the 150-point Bizarro from the Fast Forces. I thought that he was just wonderful. Those two together.
I think that's definitely playable. I wish that 150-point Bizarro was 100-point Bizarro, and then I'd be like, that's a really playable team. It's so tough. Right now, until retirement happens, we're just a little bit far off from there being anything that can really compete with Metro and Nightcrawler. But when we hit retirement, I think you'll see Eradicator coming in a big way. I don't know if we got beyond saying that, but I think Eradicator with the full gauntlet is a huge figure to play. He has everything you want, and he's really well costed. I think Stranger could emerge. I'm not a big fan of him. You wish there was more stuff. I think the 100-point Supergirl from Fast Forces is insane.
She is awesome.
It says something right now to the metagame of how ridiculously powerful Nightcrawler is, so that a 100-point figure that has hypersonic speed and hits for 4 damage with an 11 attack is not good enough. It just says, because she can't hit Nightcrawler. But the problem is only 1 or 2 figures, which are Bullseye and Eradicator right now, can hit Nightcrawler consistently. The next thing you look for is any single person with Bolt Wave, such as Sunboy, such as Banshee. I've heard some strong cases for Black Bolt, the 190, both of them actually, but the 193.1. You have to start looking at if your opponent gets the gauntlet going and gets on that 2, or, God forbid, gets on the 3, with the gauntlet and gets full godhood. You really have to look at how can you take that person down. And, the gauntlet is 100% nullified with Pulse Wave. So I think in the future, you're going to see every single team that's Tier 1, either 1, being hyper-aggressive, being able to kill somebody in 5 or 6 turns before they can run the gauntlet, or 2, have Pulse Wave.
What do you think about one figure that in our local meta we've been sort of toying with? We haven't gotten to the point where it's like a staple yet. Is Beast Boy with Outsiders, because currently he's like the only, and I think he will only be the single figure with Outsiders team ability in neutralizing Gauntlet figures.
I think that's good. I know that Outsiders does nullify the Gauntlet. I think that Beast Boy is okay. I think that's very hard to set up, and that's the problem. You're playing a hard defensive setup. Now, I think Beast Boy is definitely a Tier 2 figure currently. I like anybody that's a real Swiss Army knife. I wish that its hypersonic speed version of him wasn't so terrible.
Yeah.
Because she is basically unplayable. That's way too low of attack. But his dinosaur is obviously pretty good, and him himself isn't bad. The thing you have to worry about Outsiders is it has to be at the beginning of your turn. And any good player is going to choose things such as Spell, such as hypersonic speed, such as having barrier. It's really hard to get that line on him. Outwit can work oftentimes in a lot of scenarios because you move the character into the line of fire to get Outwit. Outsiders is so tough because it's at the beginning of your turn, and I just don't think a good player is going to set a character with Godhood front and be like, oh, whoops, I accidentally placed him in front of Beast Boy, and it's just not going to happen. And then it becomes a real problem. They're probably just going to destroy Beast Boy, or more
And no
back
moving
in the day for
attack.
me.
Yeah, and no moving attack just messed things up. Everyone knows my commentary on the rise of Metron, and anyway, but
yeah, it's horrible. Playing Metron Nightcrawler. I mean, it's not horrible like playing the old-fashioned structural integrity field was, because legitimately you do attack Metron Nightcrawler, and it is an actual game. It just feels unfair because they can run at any point, they can heal at any point, they can, you can't outwit them, and you almost never hit Metron. But it is a fair game, and if you roll high enough, you can beat them. But it's, it's boring. It's playing the best thing, and a lot of people don't want to play the best thing. But as I sit here in a car driving to Oregon for the last 5 hours, you don't want to go, and you're like, you play testing work so hard, and then you're like, you sit down to the table and you're like, wow, I'm playing the third best team out there. Or I'm playing the second best team. I play tested this, and it didn't work. If you look at the Final Four for Click-a-thon, which is a good test of what's really competitive, 3 of them were Metron, 2 of them were Metron Nightcrawler. The finals was Metron Nightcrawler versus Metron Edward Nigma. And then the rogue team was Ed, Uniquest, and he played the Professor X thing and lost 3 times in a row to the Metron team. And that was clearly probably the second best team.
Yeah, Professor X can be based, and that's one of the things that I don't think people realize when dealing with Nightcrawler, and is that you're operating in a space war. You're not operating in an attack war so much, you're operating in a space manipulation war. And if you cannot bridge the space between you and Nightcrawler, his effectiveness increases. So the farther you are away from Nightcrawler, the farther you are away from his team, the more effective Nightcrawler is. With Professor X being, in the starting area, all Nightcrawler has to do is just yank him out the starting area, and Professor X is pretty much neutered. And that's the biggest disadvantage of Professor X in high competitive play right now.
Yep. You put, what happened every time, it basically Nightcrawler runs at the Professor X person. He's carried the first turn, and the second turn he can usually get to him. He attacks whoever is the transporter for Professor X. Usually that would be Kate Carson. So he attacks him and then replaces him in the space. So if he stands next to Professor X, then the following turn, then Metron has to rest once. Nightcrawler oftentimes dies in this scenario, believe it or not, because most people will allow him to be outwitted a couple times. And then the following turn, Metron stands next to Professor X, and the game is pretty much over.
Yeah.
Because nobody can attack, nobody can break through with Metron. So you're actually, you're running at him, which you think would be such a poor idea. Running, usually if you can get your opponents to run at you as hard as they can, you'll probably won the game. Which has been my whole thing, playtesting. I didn't mention this, but swing. I know I've talked a lot of articles about swing, and swing is basically how far you can go out and attack somebody. For example, like a character with hypersonic speed and TK, so a TK character, hypersonic speed, and a 6 range, a 8 swing from the TK, then he can move, let's say, 10, and then he can hit 3, so he's going to have a 23 swing range. When somebody sees that they can they're going to be outmoved by you, when your opponent sees that, they're forced then to run at you, because they know you're going to get first attack, and they want second attack. So if you can get that, if you can get them to come to you, you're probably going to win most of the game. And when I play for fun, which I don't really do much, but when I play for fun, and I'm not trying to just bring out people are going to groan at. I make sure that I have a character that's going to be able to first hit, and then I go with my opponent into coming to me. And, the person that's best at that I've ever seen is Matt Esbrook. He will literally, in big tournaments, tell his opponent, like, I'm not coming to you. And he'll just, he'll make a draw line in the sand and say, I'm not coming to you. I'm not going to run at you. And he wins. He's won hundreds of games because he does. He makes that line. He doesn't panic. He doesn't get nervous, and he'll sit there. He'll sit there and roll the gauntlet. He'll sit there and twiddle his thumbs, but he won't come to you if he feels like you're going to destroy him. If he comes to you, he's going to make you come to him, and then he'll attack you, and then he'll make it into a fair fight for him.
Yeah, and I've played against a lot of people in my meta where they will pick map, and you'll pick your side, and then they'll be like, I'm not going to move first, you go pass. And I've had to adapt to that in the meta, and I'll just say this as a player who plays against people like that. Is it fair? Yes. B, is it frustrating at times to continually deal with it? Yes. Once you adapt to seeing people play like that, the first thing I say is I figure out, okay, what's their swing? What's their max swing? And I mark it on the map with a dice or a token or something. The next thing I do is I set up probably about 2 squares outside of that swing. The next thing I try to look at is, are they a burst team or are they sort of like a sustained team? And what I mean burst team is like, can they take out one of my figures in one turn? Or are they like just going to, just keep coming after me round after round, doing damage, and whittling me down. So when I see if they're a burst team, I'm like, okay, do I have anything that negates their burst? That's why I personally feel barrier is at premium. Like, you need to have that. There's no excuse for you not to have that. Support, if you can fit it, it's great. It lets you recover from a burst team. And then it helps you a little bit against the whittle team. But mainly, having barrier. And once I started marching downfield with barrier and a little bit of stealth here and there, those people that decided, oh, I'm just going to sit back and pause, all of a sudden realizes that not only did they forfeit ground, they have no place to retreat to, and I'm in a prime position. And so that's the thing that you have to look at for our listeners, is that if you're constantly dealing with people like that in your meta, you need to start packing barrier, pack a little stealth, and force your opponent to be in their starting area being the worst place for them to be, and that'll fix everything, and they'll stop doing that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that I think that barrier or hypersonic speed or PK all serve a similar function to what you're saying. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's exactly what you need to do. The slow march down the field, protecting yourself. And you won't get people like that. There's some major common mistakes that I think people make when they're evaluating a figure, and one of them is they look at how much damage they can deal, and that's why you see a lot of new players or non-competitive players playing a lot of those people charge. We call them bricks. Basically, charge is terrible. In short, you should almost never play a character with charge. You should never play a character with phasing unless his name is Metron, and it's this exact month in which I'm talking. Right after Metron's retired, or right after one other figure becomes big, Metron will be bad again. Moving attack. There's only 2 major moving attacks, and it's hypersonic speed and running shot, and everything else is pretty much bullets. And you have to be playing that, and you have to be playing TK. Otherwise, your opponent will sit on you, and you will run at them, and they'll ping you off, and you will be pinged off slowly, and you'll lose. You'll lose, and more importantly, you'll be frustrated because you felt like you didn't have that option. I think a lot of times you assume that you're looking at a figure and like, oh, when he's next to somebody, he's going to destroy him. Yeah, that is very true. But unless you're playing Lockjaw, you're probably not getting next to somebody. That just doesn't happen like it used to anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, and I know we've brought up Lockjaw a couple times in the game. The Lockjaw, in all honesty, and I'm probably going to get a lot of disagreement on this. Lockjaw sort of serves the same function as Nightcrawler, and please bear with me. Again, what we're talking about, space manipulation, and pretty much Scott will attest to this, is back before Lockjaw came out, people would not just turtle in their starting areas. You're talking about maps that were way bigger. And if they did move up, they would leave like all their support at home. Like it was like all the your paramedics, everything that was making that big tent pole broke was in the starting area. And so Lockjaw with double time was a solution to make the meta not just to be about big bricks and people, smacking your figure for 7-8 damage. Ultraman, I'm looking at you, Ultraman. How many nightmares I've had of Ultraman. But anyway, recovering my feelings and my manhood for a moment, Lockjaw was able to not only bring a figure that was able to do damage to support, because you're talking about 14, capping out at 15 defense for most of these figures, but also able to bring another attacker down. Nightcrawler in the same sense. What are we seeing? We're seeing the same thing. Even though we're paying more for probability control, more for support, more for TK, more for this, that, and the other, people do not keep their whole army in tempo. Definitely when it comes to TK. TK is the biggest element that I feel in newer players and medium experienced players and even some expert players that's very poorly handled, because TK is seen as something to move you forward and never backward. It's only thought of, I need to advance up the map, and I'm going to wear my bright red coat and walk in the middle of this field and shoot my gun. That's not good tactics. And so Nightcrawler, and I'm hoping the new Lockjaw will exploit the fact that you technically have 6, 7, 8 squares between your support and your main army. And if I'm able to get something back there that's going to harass your support or break up your formation or hit a sore spot in your formation, you're now facing a two-front war. Do you go back and save your support and allow my attacking force to get better position, or do you fight my attacking force and lose all your support? So those are things when you come to team building and your design, you have to ask yourself, what formation, how closely together do my figures need to be? Because if they're all over the place, then you have a problem. And if they're not in tempo and step with each other, you pay for TK, but you're really not using TK. You pay for Perplex or Outwit or whatever, but now they're so far back that they're not effective. So those are things you have to keep in mind of.
Yeah, I think Cosmo might be playable in the future. He has a lot of what I look for. You know who I love is Manchester Black.
Man, I told you!
I love him.
That is the dog!
Yeah?
I love some Manchester Black. Oh, gosh.
Manchester Black, he does. When I look for TK, I look for not just TK, but the ability for the TKer to get into battle by himself. Manchester Black has TK, he has Running Shot, he has Suicide Squad, which is still one of the best powers ever, even without Fog. It's my favorite team ability, although it's definitely keeps getting downgraded the higher points these figures are. And he has Psychic Blast. He has everything, and he heals all the time. The only downside is he's 97 points and should probably be 77 points to make him broken. But when things retire, he is plausible. He may be the higher end, like if you have the points to use, he may be the higher end version of a TKer.
Okay.
So that.
I will give, I don't know if I've said this team on the show or not, but this is my I can almost fit everything I need to into the meta team. And this is pre-gauntlet, people, so bear with me, okay? So I have two of these teams, and their only big difference is changing who my main attacker is. I have one with Earth One Chase Soups from the Superman set, Manchester Black, Taro, and Johnny Quick. So I'll have Perplex with Johnny Quick. I can possibly have Prob or double Perplex with Taro. Taro gets support on her second click. Manchester Black has TK. And really, Chase Soups, him and the object and him just hitting anyone in a melee attack is the equivalent of outwit most of the time. Definitely then, everyone had damage reduction. So he was pretty much an auto hit. The other one is you just take out, it's the same team, you just take out Earth One Chase Soups with Black Adam at 100 points. And I think you put not Monster Society, the Society, so he can't be outwitted. Or a chance for him not to be outwitted. And literally, I have won like lots of games with this team. It's awesome.
You're playing the best support. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think you mentioned, and I keep getting ideas, but you mentioned characters that are about to be tier 1. I think Tara is tier 1 right now.
Yeah.
I think she is the best support piece, period. She is a prop. When you think about it like this, roulette is 35 points and worth it because that's the cheapest you got. So prop control is worth 35 points. Terrell pretty much always has prop control because you can keep it. You don't have to roll it every turn.
Yeah.
You can keep her on prop control. You push her once, and now she's Nightmares because she has a 9 attack and healing and prop control. And what do you want more on your healer than any other possible thing? Prop control.
Yeah.
Nothing's bigger than healing in the game. So you got a prop control healer, and then if you are really down, you are like, I'm not winning this game. If you can roll that 11 or 12, that is one of the most powerful effects in the history of HeroClix. 3 range for automatic poison is ridiculous on a 47-point character. She has very, very, very few flaws. For her points right now, she is the chief. She is the support piece, in my opinion. And a lot of people don't like her because you can, because of that role thing.
Yeah.
That being said, it sometimes works in your favor too.
Yeah.
I have definitely used prop control and then rolled for her, gotten perplexed, and then used the perplex defensively. Or reverse of that, I've used perplex offensively and then rolled for her, got the prop control, and used that defensively, or continuing on with a secondary attack offensively. And once you use up that perplex, if it's offensive, you might as well roll for her, and then you get her off of it. Maybe she has that, or maybe she has barrier, or something like that. So she's good on basically everything except for when you roll a 1 or a 2 or a 3. I think if you roll over a 6 on her power, she's stellar. And I don't think people use her enough because I think she's hard to understand and keep track of. And you see the card, you're like, oh, I'm not doing this. But she's stellar.
Hold up, just give me a second. And go. All right, so lead in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I know like Taro has been top tier for me and definitely from support wise. And one thing I really liked about her is I think if you get on Priestess, she gets defend, and her low defense values with support is just ridiculous. So it's almost like an auto heal. But if we're looking down the line, where do you see the future of support being? Because I know we've talked a lot about attack, and I know we said we're paying high prices for support. But where do you see the future of support? Do you think like something like Armadeus Cho is more viable, or are we better off looking at like figures like Roulette? What's the other name? J. Jonah Jameson or Gleek or figures like that where they just do one thing and they sit in the back?
Well, one, I do believe that NECA HeroClix is going to bring it back. I think the problem is there's going to be cheap support, but it's going to be cheap support with this condition. For instance, like you have to have Red Skull or Jonathan Kraus or something like that The AIM people are really where it's at. The one that has Perplex and Barrier, he's stellar.
The enhancement barrier.
I think they're bringing it back. I think they're just bringing it back at 30 points. I think Perplex is very important because you have to be able to hit. But when you do it out mathematically, probability control is so colossally statistically better. I mean, the most likely scenario, to put it out there for you, is if you're rolling for an 8, you have, what was that, 36% chance or something of that nature of hitting that 8 or higher. And if you're rolling for a 7, you have a 56% chance of hitting it, I believe. It's something right about there. And if you add Perplex, you'll get that extra 16 to 17% in your favor of hitting. However, if you add probability control, you literally time your chance of hitting, and you cut it. Your chance of missing, and you cut it in half. That's the math that I have for that. And basically, sorry, I'm driving to Origins right now, and I'm trying to find a White Castle. And I think I might have finally found one. I've been going for 200 miles now, hoping to find a White Castle. I'm starving this whole time.
White Castle, oh gosh, I haven't eaten one of those in a long time.
I love White Castle. Do you guys not have White Castles where you are?
No, they went extinct a long time ago.
Oh, that's a shame. White Castle is the crack of hamburgers. Anyway, so basically, prop control is still massively king. And I think you'll see it on higher point characters a lot. I think in the future they're going to lower prop control, and they're going to say that it's probably going to be an 8 range. I think they're going to take everything down to 8 range pretty soon. That's my gut feeling. I'm not basing that on evidence. A lot of times I'll tell you stuff from me talking to different people in the industry. That's my gut shot there. But I think probability control is going to be bigger. I think outwit's less big because it feels like everybody has some sort of thing that's going to cancel outwit. And that's one of the things I used to never play with outwit. If you're looking for specific pieces, I think tarot is, I hate to just keep going back to tarot, but I think it's going to be tarot. I think it's going to be those AIM medic people, not medics, I'm sorry, those AIM people. And, I think that's where you got right now. I think the next 2 sets are going to have a lot more support in them, and that's what my gut feeling is. And I think Hydra is going to be huge, like the actual Hydra figures. Getting that +1 to attack is ridiculous. You look at Jonathan Jameson. What do you do with Perplex nowadays? On defense, when you can't attack, you use it on defense, but you're almost always using it on offense, and you're not using it on your damage anymore. You're usually using it on your attack, because everybody has a 19. And you need to consistently hit, you're aiming for a 13 attack, which nobody has. So you're definitely going to be using it on that. So you're playing 26 points for Joe and Jameson, right? Where the Hydra guy, that's like an afterthought, and it gives you the Perplex that you're looking for on your attack. So why not just go with them and use their extra barrier, or in that one case, you use their Perplex and their barrier and their thing. He's going to give you +2 to attack, oftentimes, unless you're using a charge figure. If you're using a charge figure, you probably already lost, and you're not listening to this podcast anyway.
Oh, okay. Here's the thing for me, and I'll let some people in on. He talks about charge figures. Currently, the theme team I'm looking at for Infinity Gauntlet Month 6 is between 2 of them. One is Fast Forces Soup. Well, it's Metropolis. It's Fast Forces Soups, Fast Forces Supergirl, Lex Luthor, and Livewire, and Infinity Gauntlet with Soul, Space, and Time Gem on Fast Forces Superman. The other one is Defenders with Gravity Feed Doctor Strange, Secret Invasion Doctor Strange, Galactic Guardians Hulk with Charge, Secret Invasion Howard the Duck, and the Power Gem on Doctor Strange, Secret Invasion. So one of my teams is like hyper, get in there, kill you quickly, and the other one of my teams is killing you softly with bricks. I
gotcha. Well, Strange also often forces people to come to you. So I would probably play the Strange one. The problem with that is, here's what I see. And I'm not saying that it can't win, because it certainly can. If I'm playing a 700-point game, I am playing a Pulse Wave. Because you're dealing with, I'm playing Pulse Wave, Psychic Blast. I'm just playing different Pulse Waves. That's basically what I'm doing. Because you have to cut through that defense. And Pulse Wave is the one thing that happens no matter what. If somebody's playing 600-point Galactus, Pulse Wave's still going to hit him for 4. You know, if somebody's playing, you know, the Master Mold that generates Sentinels, Pulse Wave's still going to hit. There's nothing that's not going to hit him. Where, like, it's hard to finesse a 700-point game, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think it's 400-point game. It's a 400-point modern age.
Oh, it's 400 points.
400 points.
Okay.
Last month was 700 points. Last month was the reign of Colossus.
Sorry about that.
Last month was Reigns of Colossal, so I wasn't even going to try to seriously do that. I didn't have any money for a Colossal then.
All right, I apologize. Here's what I'll do. Let me re-answer that question.
This is the Starting Over podcast. This ends part 1 of my great interview with Scott, a.k.a. Crayon Company. Feel free to listen to part 2.